Hey, yo, it's Z100, New York's #1 hit music station. I'm Josh Martinez on the Superstar Crossover podcast with our guest, Casey Navarro, and the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Say his name and he appears, Joe Hendry. What's going on, gentlemen?
Having a great morning. Thank you for inviting us in. There's been a lot of excitement already, even before we got in here.
Literally.
So you guys walked in, and Tate McRae, who's a successful pop star, was walking out of the studio. And then there's a gentleman here by the name of Big Mac who's on Wildin' Out and The Breakfast Club, and he fangirled in ways I've never seen before with you, Joe Hendry.
Now, I just want to say I would have liked to talk to Tate, so it would be cool to say hello, maybe get a picture with the TNA title, but I think she was obviously a huge fan of TNA wrestling, didn't want to say anything, so she was probably feeling a little pressure, just went right by.
That's a little nervous.
It was the nerves.
She strikes me as someone who enjoyed, Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe back in the day and the lineage of the company and all that.
But, big fan of skinhead, shaved head Kurt Angle.
That's it.
That's her thing.
Yeah. And then we had Big Mac, who sang my song in its entirety, and my favorite bit was he was like, so prestigious, oh! He added in an oh! I very much appreciated it. We sang the song together, we did the spin. What a way to kick off. I'm feeling good.
So you guys last night, Casey, you guys were at the Rangers Islanders game at UBS Arena. Now, you grew up in Jersey, was it?
Yes, sir.
So did you grow up following the New Jersey Devils? Or
I was actually a Rangers fan.
My man.
So to watch the Rangers win last night was actually pretty cool.
You're damn right it was.
I enjoyed it. a lot.
So was that your first hockey game ever?
Yes. Like I said, they had to tell me what sport it was, and now I know.
Was it easy to follow?
I mean, I didn't follow much, to be honest, because we were facing away from the rink when we kind of did the promo and stuff like that. But I enjoyed the atmosphere. I thought the hospitality was amazing. And you know what I did enjoy? I didn't know who was scoring, who was winning. The fights, the violence. I was like, I like this. The thing I liked about it is one guy would get slammed into the side and it'd be like, well, they just go about their business. He didn't even look back to see who slammed them. It was only when we got really aggressive. I think we could... few more fights, few more.
It's interesting because I feel like that game last night, if you're talking about regular season, it's a great introduction. The rivalry team, Islanders, Rangers, it probably was louder Ranger fans in there, so even though you were at an Islanders game, it sounded like it was more of the opposite team. Growing up, aside from wrestling, what sport were you into, Joe?
I got to be honest, I'm the outcast of my family. They're all football guys, soccer. They all support a team called Heart of Midlothian, and I will, occasionally go along with them to just be a part of the family. But for me, nobody else in my family really liked wrestling. For me, it was wrestling and MMA, and that's it. No team sports. Maybe that says something about me. Maybe I'm a psycho. I don't know.
What about you, Casey? Growing up, what sports did you play?
Big basketball. I love basketball. I'm a diehard Miami Heat fan.
Well, no one's perfect.
Hey, man. We're rebuilding right now. We lost Jimmy. It's okay, but hey, man, it's tatted. I got it.
Wow.
Die hard, baby.
You know what I don't get? You know what I don't get? I'm sorry. But you go, we lost him. Were you in the management meetings?
I was sitting behind the bench for a majority of those games.
When people go, I can't believe we played like that. Were you on the court?
Hey, listen, being in first class, I was sitting courtside for a majority of those games and sitting behind them in majority of those playoffs. And, I felt like I was a part of the team, Joe.
I am a huge we guy when it comes to my teams. I mean, I put literally my teams on this Stanley Cup gimmick that I have here purposely. I am a big we guy. I'm sorry. I mean, your family's probably the same way if they're huge football fans of that team you mentioned.
They are.
And there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, pardon me, Joe. Come on.
It sounds like you're projecting a little bit.
I agree.
You tell me.
He's a big projector.
You're gonna analyze me psychologically. Tell me what I'm projecting.
I'm just saying maybe you were just a little envious of this team spirit, and you were like, I'm going to go into the MMA side of things and pro wrestling and amateur wrestling and do things on my own where I don't have to rely on other people.
Damn, I was not actually ready for that. That was actually that's giving me a lot to think about. Not even joking. He's probably on the money there. I wasn't ready for that. So we had a great morning, and I've been psychoanalyzed for free, I might add.
Boom.
So people have to pay thousands of dollars for that.
And you know what? That's the beauty of doing New York City media. We're not gonna, I don't try to do softball questions. I'm not Dave LaGreca over here. Okay, I do thought out things here.
To be fair, you've got which company I work for correct. That's a good start. Dave messed that up a couple times yesterday.
That's exciting. Let me tell you. No, I'm a genuine fan. But growing up, Casey, so you played basketball? Any other sports did you actually play? Or?
Played a little basketball, played a little football. But, I wasn't the super athlete of the family. We all knew I had like a little entertainment side of me. I loved professional wrestling. My dad went to the military when I was 2, and it was the one thing that made me feel like he was home. So I just grew up watching it. That was my Barney the Dinosaur. That was all the kiddie shows. That was my kiddie show, and I grew up with that. And I just always knew, that's what I wanted to be. I was bullied my entire life for wanting to be a wrestler.
Really?
Bullied?
Bullied?
No friends. My freshman year, those long tables that sat 35 kids, I sat by myself. Nobody wanted to sit with me.
Did you smell or something?
No, I just... probably smelled like success. I smelled like a star, but nobody wanted to see it then. I was the smallest guy there, but now I'm living my dream. I'm here in TNA. This is where I wanted to be. So, yeah.
Did you play high school sports?
I wrestled in high school my freshman year.
Metuchen High School?
Metuchen High School,
Okay.
yeah. I wrestled my first year, and then my sophomore year, I was 15, and I was allowed to start training at a wrestling school in New Jersey, and the rest is history. 15 years old.
So you mentioned earlier that you kind of watched wrestling as an escape of sorts, or like a dynamic combination with your father who may not have been physically present.
Sure.
Do you kind of look back and say that you've been watching wrestling ever since you can remember?
Yeah, my entire life.
So who would you say like made you fall in love with it? Like what performer?
So I have what I call my blessed 6, because they're the wrestlers that I feel like made me who I am today. That would be The Rock, Roman Reigns, Matt Cardona, formerly known as Zack Ryder, Nick Nemeth, formerly known as Dolph Ziggler, Randy Orton, and John Cena. Those are my guys.
It's so fascinating to me because Joe and I are the same age.
Yeah.
You're not too far away in theory, but like to hear you talk about these particular wrestlers, and like to me that was when I was in high school, hating John Cena, right? Because it was just like hustle, loyalty, respect. When you grow up like in the hood, you're like, dude, get out of here with that nonsense, right? But you did mention Matt Cardona, and then you scoffed.
I did.
Why was there a scoff?
To put Matt Cardona in that company, come on, people.
Hey, I got to put him
Come
over.
on.
I got to
That's
put him
a-
over. He was actually one of the main reasons I got bullied. Actually, it was Matt Cardona.
Well, because
Now-
nobody
now
was a
this
Matt
makes
Cardona
sense.
fan.
This now makes
Yeah, but hey! I remember in November of 2011, I went to Survivor Series
What
at
venue?
Madison Square Garden.
you go.
Okay, the world's most famous arena. The main event was John Cena and The Rock versus Miz and R-Truth, and I remember the opening match was John Morrison versus Dolph Ziggler, Nick Nemeth for the United States title. And the entire match, they were chanting, "We want Ryder."
And then what happened after the match?
And he had the biggest pop of the night when he came out and attacked Nick. So
And
let's call it what it is.
We'll give him credit where credit's due because he changed the game.
He did.
change the game.
He did.
Yeah.
Now you did mention Nick Nemeth,
Yes.
who you recently got in the ring with, and the reason that you're holding that championship. How tough was it for you to start this whole movement of going viral, and you're just not being the top guy just yet? Did it motivate you more? Was it frustrating? Was it a little bit of both?
So for me, the approach, I changed my approach probably about 3-4 years ago from I want to win this title, I want to work here, I want to do that, to just, you know what, I'm committed no matter what happens, even if it's just in front of 200 people, I'm going to give it my absolute best, and I'm going to get better with every single show. I just wanted to get better all the time, and that's what I've held to this day. And, I feel like I feel like I'm the most improved wrestler in the world over the last year. That's my opinion. If you look at where I was and what I was doing and where I am now, I really feel like I'm the most improved. And if you strive to be the most improved, then titles and opportunities are going to come. And you know what? If you're working someone the caliber of Nick Nemeth, you can't help but get better, right? So for me, like it's something that happened very organically, and it was very cool when it did actually happen. It's one of these things you hope will happen, but you never know, right? You never know. There's a lot of things out your control in the business, but here we are. And I thought, well, 2025 can't possibly get bigger than 2024, and well, we ticked that one off by February 1st.
Yeah, you did. You entered in the Royal Rumble at number 15, and then right after you was Roman Reigns, someone you looked up to, someone who was arguably the biggest draw in the industry. What was that feeling like coming down the aisle, especially the moment you get out there? Somebody had a Joe Hendry sign right at the top of the aisle, which I thought was perfect placement and luck for that fan. What was that feeling like coming down the aisle?
It was awesome because the ramp is so long.
Yeah.
That you think like, oh yeah, the run to no, it's that's a run. That is a run, and you're thinking because you never made an entrance like that before. You're thinking, what should I do? And you want to be respectful of TNA's creative, of WWE's creative. So I just I asked Triple H. I was like, how do you think we approach this? And he told me what everybody else told me, which was take a moment, take a moment to just hear this and feel it, because these moments are rare, And I walked out. And I did what he said, and he just told me, he was like, look around, take it all in. And as I looked around and I saw that fan there, and sometimes if I see a fan with a sign, I will point to them. and I saw that sign, and then what blew me away was someone had a Hendry sign with the H, the E, the N, and so on, in the same way that they did for The Rock back in the day. And I saw that, and I was like, what? Like, I thought the reaction would be good, but nothing could prepare me for that. So I was really grateful to both TNA and WWE for allowing that to happen. I was very thankful to Triple H for taking the time to have that moment with me. You know, I felt like he was personally excited for me as well, like just as a person to have that moment. So that was awesome.
So you're in the ring. You do your thing. Sheamus is in the corner. You have some sort of history with him going back in the day, no?
I'll be honest, right? I got to the ring and Sheamus is standing there and I had no idea what to do. I was like, I have this whole thing I want to do, right? And I'm going, do I go over and kick him? And then I'm going to have to go over and keep kicking him. So I thought, you know what? He looks like he just wants to sit back and enjoy the show. So I'll just leave him over there. And that's what I did. And it was kind of an organic moment that became funny. You got
eliminated by Roman Reigns, which is not a bad person to get eliminated by.
Well, if you're going to get thrown over the top rope by someone, right?
Exactly. You get backstage. What is that conversation like with Triple H? It's got to be brief, but what is the interaction like?
Well, then, I mean, Triple H is running the show, right? So he's really busy. So you don't want to, you kind of want to be respectful of people's roles and what they're doing. But I did get a chance to speak to Triple H and many other people, just to say thanks for the opportunity and thanks for the partnership between TNA and NXT and WWE, and it was just a very positive conversation. I could, I think I would hope that the NXT stars that come over to TNA feel the same way, and to me it just seems like a really positive thing in the wrestling business. It's awesome.
So Casey, when you see him in the Royal Rumble and you've seen, at that point Jordynne Grace was kind of known, not known, and now she's there full time. What does that do for you from a motivational standpoint?
I mean, it's definitely inspiring. Joe's whole story is super inspired to me. I actually go to Joe a lot for advice. I think our last 3 media days, all I've been doing is chewing up his ear, asking him for advice. It definitely makes me want to push harder and maximize every opportunity I get in TNA. I've only been in TNA for the last few months, and TNA had no problem throwing me right into the deep end. I mean, my first night was for the tag titles. My third match was against the Hardy Boys. So, I mean, that was a pretty big jump. And then my fourth match was against him and Nick. And, I've been facing all the main eventers. They didn't put me in a very small spot. So every time I see something that Joe's doing or like what Jordan did, it's very motivating, and it just makes me want to maximize every opportunity I get with TNA.
So it's interesting because you mentioned like chewing his ear off during the media days. Who else has helped you so far since being in TNA?
Nick Nemeth has definitely been a big one. My tag team partner AJ Francis, he knows how to get attention. He knows how to do his thing. And then Matt Cardona, when I get to see him. Hey, come Francis. On, man. Look, you don't like my company.
You're picking them today.
You don't like my company, but it's put me in a pretty good spot. I'm coming for the title at some point anyway. And then Matt Cardona would definitely be another one, and obviously Tommy Dreamer, Gail Kim, also there. So we have a great team at TNA. It's a big family. You can honestly just go to anybody, and I just love it there.
So we're still early in the year. Sure. What would you say is your main goal for 2025?
I mean, obviously, I'd like to bring the tag team titles to first class with me and AJ Francis. Another big goal of mine is to have a prime spot at SLAMMIVERSARY. It's in New York, UBS Arena, July 20th. Get your tickets. We've been promoting it all week, and it's going to be the biggest event of the year. It's right in my backyard, right? So it'd be my first time my family actually gets to see me perform on TNA, and that's such a big scale to do it at, right? And it's going to be different from going to wrestle in front of 15 people to thousands of people in a real arena. So that's probably my biggest goal right now.
So Joe, when you find out that TNA is booking their biggest event in New York, and obviously you have that title, so your goal is to go into that show as the top dog. Do you feel any added pressure before going to UBS in late July?
I think I used to feel pressure. Whereas, again, this is something I've picked up from top talents in the business. They stay on top of the numbers and the metrics, and again, this is something I heard John Cena talk about, which was when he was getting mixed reactions, whether it be like boos and cheers. They were always loud, but he was getting some boos, getting some cheers online. Some people are loving it, some people are feeling the other way, but they're all loud. But he's saying the metrics that he paid attention to were the merchandise sales, the ticket sales, the television numbers, the social media numbers. If you look at the segment with me and Elijah on our last TV show, if you go on YouTube and look at those numbers are up there with pretty much any segment that went on in wrestling that week, and you think about some of the names that had segments that week. So to me, I take great pride in that. But what it also does is it gives me, it reassures me that I'm doing the right thing, and that actually knowing that by me being the champion, I'm contributing and I'm helping with these numbers. And when I have that, it's like it feels more like a responsibility in the best possible way, rather than like, oh, well, give me the title. It's like, no, I can contribute and I can help this company grow. So that's how I feel.
Do you feel that if you would have been champ, let's say 4 years ago, do you think you would have been ready then?
I like to think that I would do my best to live up to challenges that are put in front of me. But what I will say is it felt like all the stars aligned perfectly for this to be my first world title run.
So we got to talk about the music, because it's
right.
obviously, kind of how a lot of people were introduced to you. And I got to show love to Garrett of Elvis Duran in the Morning Show, because he had a really good question outside. Is there anything that didn't make the song, or anything that looking back at it now, you're like, shit, I wish I would have added this to the song?
No, absolutely not. Like,
Okay.
to be honest with you, I'm going to go out and say this. So I will often rank things on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being a disaster, 10 being perfect. And I never rate myself on 10 for anything I've ever done except that song. That song, the stars aligned. Everything went right with it. I wrote it with intention. There's not 1 second out of place on that song. I spent weeks on it. I did everything that I wanted to do, and I've got no regrets about it. Because here's the thing, I actually tried to re-record a different version, because sometimes there's I won't get into it, but for music licensing and publishing, sometimes it's good to have a couple different versions, right?
Or it might sound too much like this other song.
No, there's nothing like that. It's just that you can, without boring the listeners, it's like you can license the recording rights on one recording to one situation and one to another, things like that, right? So we actually tried to re-record the song and couldn't do it.
Really?
Yep, couldn't do it. There are some times where it just, all the stars align. It just, for whatever reason, it just didn't have that thing that made it work.
So you mentioned John Cena giving you advice. He opened up recently over the last few years and talked about how he had, when he was supposed to turn heel, he created a whole new version of his song.
New music, new gear.
Everything. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but obviously characters evolve. Have you put any thought into how, when that time, if that time comes, how you will change the song up?
So what's interesting to me is that I always wanted to be a bad guy, right? It's the role I actually feel most comfortable in, to be honest with you. And I did that for a long time when I was in What Culture Pro Wrestling in 2016. I was a despicable villain on that show, right? But the truth is, I think that there are a lot of people who don't like me. You know what I mean? They don't like the cheese and the smile and all that. And to be honest, why change it? Because if they already have that opinion, if you already don't like me and I go, I'm the world champ. It's like there's nothing more obnoxious than that. So I take inspiration from CM Punk in that regard, because whether he is a good guy or a bad guy, he's the exact same guy. So you mentioned before we even started, I said that in a little bit, Jason Derulo's coming in studio. Yes.
And you had a little bit of a fun story involving Jason Derulo.
So the first song I ever had in wrestling, I took inspiration. The whole reason it came about is because, he goes, Jason Derulo, and I thought, that's amazing. That's the most obnoxious thing I've ever heard. So on my song, I went, Joe Hendry, local hero. That was the first thing I ever did. And that was the inspiration for the song. So, if it wasn't for Jason Derulo, maybe I wouldn't be sitting here. Maybe I wouldn't be champion. So and here we are, full circle moment. He's coming in right after this.
Yeah.
Did he book that because he wants a picture with the TNA title? He might have.
He might.
Can't say either way. All we can do is speculate.
Exactly. And he's from Miami.
Yeah. Did Tate McRae come in here because she wanted a picture with the TNA champion? Hey, I'm just it's just what people are saying.
Tate McRae is from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And there's a lot of legacy there.
Of course.
She didn't know about it when I mentioned it to her. It disappointed me, but no one's perfect.
Did she not know about it? Or, you know what I mean? Did she, though?
She could have been playing it off.
What did she say? When you said, hey, whose side were you on the Montreal screw job? What did she say?
I didn't ask that question, because after I said, you're from Calgary, the Hart family, Hart family dungeon, she's like, cool. And I was like, okay, your new album. And I just kind of completely...
She thought it was cool.
Maybe she no-sold it. And she was like, I know about Calgary.
She knows. She was insulted by the question. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was just so basic. It was like, you should have asked her a real deep cut, Yeah.
And that's why
you should have asked her if she'd seen, like, the footage, the recovered footage of this, of that house show match between Bret Hart and Tom McGee, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You should have asked him.
The Lost Files.
Asked her about that. Yeah, the Lost Files.
This iconic
Rich
match.
Yeah.
So Jason Derulo from Miami, kind of a little bit. You know, lived there for how many years?
I was in and out because my dad, when he got out of the military, went to Miami
Okay.
instead of coming back to New Jersey. So I'd have to fly summers down to Miami and spend time with my dad and then fly back. But Miami's close to home for me. I love the weather.
Who doesn't?
I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah.
Weather, the women, everybody. It's just all nice. It's
That's
all
a
nice.
fact.
And of course, the Miami Heat. You know, I gotta put them over. You know that.
How do you become a Miami Heat fan growing up in New York, especially at a time where like, was it because the Knicks were trash at that time and the Heat were good? Like, what is it?
So I actually grew up kind of a Nets fan because I loved Vince Carter when I was a kid.
Fair.
And then I think I was playing NBA Live 09. I was talking to my dad on the phone, and he was like, "Oh, son, Dwayne Wade, that guy Dwayne Wade." And I was like, playing as Dwayne Wade, and then I started watching, and I was like, Dwayne Wade's my guy. And ever since then, it's just Miami Heat. I never
So it
dropped
was
out of
video
it.
games.
The video game first. Yeah.
Dwayne Wade's good. He's good.
He's
Dwayne Wade's
all right.
great.
Yeah, he's good. He's good.
Come on,
The other
Flash.
guy,
Vince Carter.
Vince Carter's good too.
Yeah.
He's good too.
Well, no, he was flashy as hell. That's
he
what
is
it was.
flashy.
Yeah. Vince
he's,
Carter
he's
was
very
up there.
flashy.
So you're not a huge basketball fan, or are you?
Well, I just displayed my knowledge right
there
there.
you go, all of it. That's it. He's shot now.
Michael Jordan's good. He's good.
He's all right. Yeah. Let me tell you something. For people our age in New York City, Michael Jordan is like the most hated human being on the planet.
Really?
Top heel.
Really?
Him, yeah, I would say Michael Jordan #1. Garrett, speak up. Reggie Miller, I would say, is #2. But certainly it goes Jordan. Most hated athletes.
Really?
And they happen. I would say probably 1 and 2 on the being basketball
Okay.
players with Michael Jordan and Reggie Miller. There's really no baseball players that are hated to that extent.
Yeah.
And then just kind of going down the list of football and hockey and such, not to that level. And then I was a hater growing up. I grew up poor, so I was like, I'm not wearing Jordans. Screw that noise. But then I got a little bit of money, dog, and now I rock Jays.
That's the first thing that happens. That's the first thing that happens, right?
I didn't sell out, okay? I bought in. So going into TNA Slammiversary, July, UBS Arena, could go down as one of the biggest shows from an audience level that TNA has ever had.
Yeah.
When you're doing the publicity and you're getting excited by talking about it months in advance, we talked about pressure about the show. Do you feel pressure doing media? Casey, we could start with you.
No, not at all. I always saw myself in this light at some point. I think it was just a matter of me getting that opportunity to be able to showcase that I can handle that. I'm not afraid to tell my story either. Like, the big thing for me for Slammiversary is I also feel like, just like Jason Derulo is full circle for him, Slammiversary is going to be full circle for me because July 20th, 2008 was my first wrestling event in Long Island.
Oh.
And July 20th, 2025, Slammiversary, TNA, the UBS Arena. So I feel like it's all full circle, man. It's been great.
That's dope, dude.
Yeah.
Joe, any when you're doing media, I mean, you've obviously been in the industry. You've been
Yeah.
doing wrestling for many years, so have you done media here and there? Is it any
Yeah.
different being the flag bearer, if you will, for your company?
100%, yeah. Like with every piece of media that I'm doing, it's now much more intention. So when I do media, I'm trying to see 3 steps ahead. How can we create a headline here? Where is it going to be posted? Do we have our crew film it? Do I need to film it? How do we do it? What can I say that's within the lines of playing within the rules that is going to get a massive amount of attention? You know, that's what I'm thinking. So I'm thinking about it from a very strategic point of view. My goal is to put TNA and the TNA World Championship in as many mainstream places as possible. And this is a great example of that. You know, we were here. I put this on Ariel Helwani's desk, which you usually wouldn't see a TNA wrestler there, right? At the game last night, we had, we've had TNA wrestlers in mainstream positions, and that's what I'm trying to do. And when we do that, I'm trying to create a bit of news as we go.
And this is the biggest, this is a fact, this is the biggest pop station on the planet, not just America, the world. I mean, you grew up here, so you know the significance of Z100, for example. But it is a music station. We talked about your music a little bit. Casey, excuse me, do you have any music that you listen to kind of get you amped up for a match, or are you more of a silence, get in a mental zone?
On my way to the building, yeah, I'm a big Eminem guy. I love Eminem. If I can meet him one day, I'd love for that to happen.
Love that.
I love Eminem. But once I'm in the zone, I'm at the building, I'm locked in, silence. It's just me and God in that moment, and I'm just ready to go.
Okay. What about you, Joe? Do you listen to music before a big moment?
I'm very careful with what I listen to when I'm training. So I do a lot of, like, people have started realizing that there's like a kind of visualization, manifestation thing going on with my life. That's a big part of my life is planning out what's going to happen next. Before I do a match or a custom video or something like that, in the gym, in between sets, I will envision it and I will see it a million times. So when it comes around, I've already lived it. You know what I mean? So I'm executing what's already happened in my head. Like, I can't tell you why. I just knew I was going to win this. I really felt strongly I was going to be in the Rumble. Like, I just feel like I just have it in my heart these things are going to happen. And yeah, you have to have the right soundtrack for when you're doing that. You know, and I hear a lot of athletes talk about visualization and stuff like that. And that actually, I think, takes away nerves completely almost. You know, not nerves, you're always excited, but you got to reframe nerves as excitement, and you got to say, like, well, I've already played this out a zillion times in my head, so now when you go to the ring or a promo or media or whatever, you're just executing what you know. It's like a script. You know, yeah. I've created a script for what's going to happen for me and my career and for TNA wrestling, and I'm just following the script. And you have to react to what's going on in the moment. You have to have your ear to the ground for what the fan base are saying to understand what that script is and what it could be, and try and nudge it in the direction as best you can.
I'm a firm believer that your thoughts become things. Manifestation is real.
I'm proof, bro. Like 100%. Like the last year, it's freaking me out now. You know. Yeah.
So before we wrap things up, I asked Casey about his 2025. What are your goals for this year?
So again, in terms of goals, I rather than put that pressure on myself and say I have to do this and I have to do that, it's more about the process for me. So it's like it's more about, rather than what I will take, as in I will take this belt, it's like I will give the audience this. I will, you know what I mean? I will entertain the audience in this way. I will go to the gym X amount of times a week. I will eat right. I will. And when you change I want to like I will, like that's when things started opening up for me. I genuinely believe in my heart I will have a match this year of a magnitude that no one would have ever thought I'd be in a year ago.
I love that. Dream match, Casey. One dream match. Who is it against?
I would love for it to happen one day. I don't think it'll be tomorrow, but I think one day I'd love to go against Roman Reigns.
Okay.
That's my guy. That's the one guy that I feel like, for me to have my story finished, because he was the guy that inspired me as a kid. He sat me down and stopped his whole meet and greet for 5 minutes in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center to speak to me and motivate me.
Really?
I feel like it has to be Roman Reigns.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 16.
What did he say to you?
Well, I went up to him and I started crying because a year prior I met him for the first time. And, you know, he just told me to chase my dreams then. And then a few months later, I started wrestling. And then a year later, you know, I won my first title. So it was very motivating for me. And when I met him that time, it was like all the emotions came and hit me at one time. And then he made the woman stop the whole meet and greet, get me a chair, sit me down. And he was like, look, man, a lot of people don't believe in me now. They're booing me out of the building. You know, I'm positioned to be the guy. No one wants to see me be the guy, but I believe in myself. You have to believe in yourself, because one day I'm going to be running this place. And I believe one day that if you truly believe in yourself, you'll be taking my spot and you'll be running it. He goes, so just keep going, keep pushing, and don't let anything stand in your way. And then, you know, he obviously said other things, but that was like the main thing I took from that. And then to see him now, he wasn't lying to me when I was 16. I mean, the guy is the guy in our business. He is the number one. So Roman Reigns is definitely that guy.
Joe, what about you?
You know what my dream match is?
Well, what is it?
Look, this is what I got to say, right? You got to throw things out there. Maybe sometimes you got to take it back a notch. You know what I'm saying? So here's what I'll say, right? You guys know what my dream match is. The audience knows what my dream match is. And what I need to do now in my role as TNA champion is I need to take a little step back, be respectful of TNA wrestling's creative process, be respectful of WWE's creative process, and say, you know what? I'm going to work my ass off to make myself one of the most compelling opponents for the biggest names in the business. I've thrown it out there. It's now on me. You know, it's now on me. So I need to do the work to put myself in a position where I am a great opponent, and it works for everybody for me to have huge matchups, you know, and that can be from, like, say it can be anyone. So Elijah showed up the other day. There's big names from all corners of the business. I'm open to all. We've got stars coming up through the ranks in our locker room. We've got people in all countries in the world. But I truly believe, this is all I'll say, I believe I will have a match this year of a unthinkable magnitude.
So, by the way, for the record, you have about 9 months for John Cena because he's wrapping things up at the end of the year. So, if you want to try to make it work, it's basically a pregnancy that you got. That's the time span. One more time, Casey Navarro, Joe Hendry, TNA SLAMMIVERSARY in July, UBS Arena, TNAWrestling.com has all the info, not only to buy tickets, but to stay up to date with what's happening on a weekly basis with you guys, with the show on Access TV, and more. One more time, thank you, gentlemen, for stopping by.
Thank you for having us, man.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate you.
And we want to see all you there at the UBS Arena. We'd love to have you along.